Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast, the post-Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day episode. Some of you, if you're into, banking and a few other industries, had Monday off. So good for you, if that's you. If you're not American, you maybe have no idea what I'm talking about. And it probably won't be the last time. But I'm Illeagle 86. I am joined by my good friend Techtic, and not Nerd Bomber this week. It's just the boys. The Wednesday after Columbus Day, as they've always said, is for the boys. So it's just the two of us here today. Techtic, it kind of goes without saying, what this means is that you've once again dodged another potential quiz loss. So do you want to speak to that at all? Or do you want to just kind of that ride?
This is a positive for me. Less L's to take to the chin. So I'm very happy about it.
I'm happy for you. I think I actually don't know who's on the hook to host next. I imagine it's probably Nerd Bomber, but I know it's not me. We're just going to have a nice, chill, relaxing episode here. So you don't need to worry about that. We don't need to have that hanging over our heads for an entire hour. So just kind of take a deep breath, and we can explain a few recent news topics to these fine folks we have sitting here in the room with us, virtually, of course. There's no one in the room with me right now. Nerd Bomber is fine. By the way, I feel like I kind of always say something to that effect when one of us isn't here. She's fine. She's just, away from the mic. So presumably she'll be back next week. None of you need to worry.
She's babysitting right now. Our dog is going through the ringer, but he'll bounce back, and she's just keeping a good eye, being a good dog mom.
Yeah, I wasn't sure the extent that you wanted to get into it, but there was a medical dog situation for you today. And first of all, thank you for being here.
He's fine.
I should thank you for powering through. He's
just pretty drugged out right now, so we wanted someone to keep an eye on him.
For those of you that are not pet owners, going to a place like the emergency vet is, well, look, it's not great. I don't know how else to say it. From a financial perspective, from a sanity perspective, from a stress perspective, it's just not ever good, even when the outcome is good, and which I think was the case here. So our thoughts collectively, myself and the listeners, I'm sure, go out to both of you and to your dog at this time. But we don't really need to dwell on that any more than we have, because we have some great news topics today. Have any of you guys ever accidentally done the vampire cocaine?
Yes.
I'm just waiting for... I wasn't waiting for your response.
No,
I was just waiting for people to say yes. So we're going to talk through a movie, a trailer that we just got for a movie that's coming out on Shudder. Actually, it's going to be out on Shudder in less than a week as of the release of this recording. So they kind of just shadow dropped a trailer here. There's some unique aspects of that we're going to get into. It's a movie called Mads. We're going to get into that. We have to talk about some Nintendo stuff too. We actually have two Nintendo topics. There was, of course, the announcement of Alarmo, which we'll get into. There was a basically 5-minute video that kind of laid out all the features for that. We'll dig into that and go through our thoughts and what it could mean for the video game peripheral industry, I guess, if such an industry exists. And we also need to talk about Pokemon, because it's that time again. I feel like we're on kind of a every other month cadence with Pokemon. It's just one of those things. It's a juggernaut.
Thanks for not calling it
Pokemon
like you usually do. I appreciate that.
I was saving it for later, so I'm not going to rule out the possibility that I will refer to it as such down the road. But yeah, we're on schedule for that. So there's some news there that we need to dig into. Some news that I would say is less fortunate than is typical when we talk about Pokemon, but we'll certainly dig into that. But I want to start off with this movie trailer. So I mentioned the vampire cocaine. This is the unique thing about this movie. So this movie is coming out to Shudder. I don't know. I kind of had a Shudder subscription at one point, but for those that do not know, Shudder is basically the subscription service, the streaming service for fans of horror movies. There are many, many horror movies, and there is a wide range of quality in those horror movies. I don't think I need to explain that. This movie, I believe, is French. It is certainly European. It appears to not be in English, so that's one, I guess, characteristic that I might want to spend a little time talking through, because I think that the horror genre is one that you often see a lot of foreign language films break through into the American mainstream. Movies like Parasite most recently. Roma was a big deal. But I'm not sure that horror movies from, across the pond really do that all that often. So I'm not sure how likely that is to happen here, but it's just something interesting to think about. The other major characteristic here that we need to talk through is the fact that this is being filmed as a one single continuous take. kind of one-shot movie in the same way as Birdman, if you've seen that movie, or 1917, if you've seen that movie. Those are two recent ones that I think were very widely acclaimed for having done that and done it very effectively. But again, I think this is the first horror movie that's ever done that. They certainly want you to believe that based on what the trailer says about it. But Techtic, we've all had nights like this where you accidentally go clubbing and turn into a vampire.
Yeah, you know how it is. In the club, we all fam. So this kind of happens.
That's right. I know you wanted to mention too, this movie may just be a very long anti-drug.
Yeah, I saw this in Dare back in high. I'm convinced this is what they showed me in Dare.
If you do cocaine,
you will eat someone's
there is
face.
At least a chance.
Like, wasn't this the?
Well, there's a chance of it.
Isn't this basically what was going on with the bath salts? Yeah,
you're gonna talk about bath
salts. The movie,
the bath salts thing. Shout out to when was that? Like 2012. When did the bath salts thing happen?
Sounds right.
To get someone to.
It's 2012 sounds right.
I love the idea of a continuous take horror movie. I'm very curious to see how it will be executed. I mean, I certainly think that the horror genre, again, has something of a reputation for being able to be effective on a low budget. And I think if you're shooting in one continuous take, and granted, for those that do not know, for those who have not seen movies like 1917 or Birdman, I'm sure there are other examples besides those two. Those are just the ones that I have seen.
Can you explain the benefit of a continuous take to me, like I'm dumb? Because
immersion. It's immersion. I would say it's the idea is if there are no cuts, you kind of feel like you're just following this character around or this set of characters around. It feels more like you are present. There's nothing that can take you out of it, right? If there's a cut to an establishing shot of a city skyline, you're suddenly not there with the characters anymore.
But
right?
I mean, he's going to different settings and things like that, so it had to break.
Well, right. So that's what I was getting to is there are certainly tricks that you can pull that, I don't think I maybe don't need to explain to anyone listening that, look, this was not a movie that was actually shot in, hour and 45-minute long takes. That's not something that is feasible or productive to do. So what you'll get is a lens flare that will allow you to kind of stitch in a cut that people won't notice, or like going around to the corner of a wall. Directors can get very creative with that sort of thing. I couldn't say whether you would be able to watch this movie and immediately identify the cuts. I think there are cleaner ways to do that. And there's again, kind of a range of skill levels that, like, I think watching 1917, from what I remember, it was not clear to me at any point where the cuts were. But a movie like Birdman, from what I remember, it actually was a little bit clearer to see where the cuts were. So yeah, it certainly isn't actually one continuous take, but even the idea, or the magic trick that they pull to try and get you to feel that way, I think it does have value within this genre and within a story like this, where it looks like some guy's just having a crazy night on cocaine and turns into a vampire or doesn't. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting idea. I kind of wish that it wasn't being relegated to Shudder, because I think my view of Shudder is that it has a very, very dedicated base of people that use it, but the people that use it are, they're the only people that are going to seek out a movie like this anyways. I would like to see this movie maybe not necessarily hit the mainstream, but be something that I could go see in theaters or see later on HBO Max for, well, not for any money, for free. But I think if it goes to Shudder, it may just stay there and it loses the chance of people seeing it and for it to enter really the larger public eye. Yeah. So I certainly don't love that. I
think this is a movie that would do well if on a wider, platform, because I really like the message that it's sending. It's basically saying, the people doing these hard drugs, they know the damage that they're doing. They know they're hurting other people, but they weigh out the rush and the feel goodness, and they just come to terms with it. They accept it. And it's like, it's a powerful message. And to put that in a horror movie is kind of clever.
I also, not for nothing, and I've probably said this on the show before, but vampires are like the scariest thing to me. That's like I don't think primal fear is the right terminology, but like ever since I was a very, very young child, just for whatever reason, the kind of concept of vampires always freaked me out. And I don't know that this is going to really be that freaky. I mean, I feel like it's more so it's doing a classic horror thing where like it's actually kind of social commentary, like you said about the drug use and stuff. But I just find vampires scary all the time. So, like again, it's hard to wrap this topic up because like if this was going to be somewhere else besides Shudder, I would probably watch it, especially around this time of year. But like I kind of feel like I'm never going to get a chance to see this, and that seems like a problem.
Have you watched Twilight? Vampires are hot. They're not scary. They're hot.
I have watched Twilight, and that's the other interesting thing about vampires is that vampires are scary, but I think there are a lot. What percentage of people? Here's an interesting discussion topic. What percentage of people in the United States, if you were to give them the opportunity to be a vampire, what percentage of people do you think would do it?
Everyone, because it's the chance of immortality. I think just about everyone.
I don't know if I would say just about everyone, but I think the percentage would be frighteningly high. And I think that's part of what makes vampires scary. Is that there's kind of this allure associated with them. I don't even mean that in the Twilight everyone's hot sense. I just mean it in the sense of like you said, people crave immortality and like vampires have this air about them, right? That like I don't know. I think that's part of what makes them scary. So I do not think that I would be a vampire because I think blood is kind of gross. But that's just a me thing, It sounds like you're saying that you would be a vampire.
100% I'd be a vampire.
So we can put that on record. Do you think Nerd Bomber would be a vampire?
Yeah, because death would be a joke at that point. We would just laugh about it. It'd be great.
I don't know that you would laugh about it, but I understand your point. I'm
also quoting lyrics in a Noah Kahn song, so I have her there as well. She's a big Noah Kahn fan.
Boy, that could not have flown further. You must miss her right now because I didn't know that. That would have flown completely over my head. Would you want to be a vampire? Let us know. At @OW86, at OW Techtic, our main show account, at online.
They probably wouldn't want to do the coke, though. Just because they're not getting immortal. They're just eating faces. This is bath salts. Like, it's not a vampire movie.
And we should talk about that, by the way. And also, if you want to unsolicited tell Nerd Bomber whether you want to be a vampire or not, OW Nerd Bomber is her handle on Twitter. She wasn't part of this discussion, but hopefully Techtic can catch her up after the fact. I also think that cocaine... And look, I'm just going to be straight up. I've never done the whole cocaine thing.
Same.
Never even tried it.
Same.
Would never want to try it.
Same.
You know why?
Because I have ADD.
Snorting something is scary. That's scary. That's a good thing to have in a horror movie. I find that terrifying.
Your sinuses are just going to be messed up.
Yeah, it's like I got enough issues going on. I don't need to be like snorting grain up there. Like it just doesn't. That's always been to me fundamentally a very jarring concept. People do cocaine, they get nosebleeds. I don't want nosebleeds. Not at all. It just doesn't seem like a great thing to me. So, if you're a cocaine user, let me know. At OW86, explain to me. Don't actually do that. That probably would be admissible in court. So, I don't know. If you tweet at someone that you're a cocaine user, do you think that's admissible in court? Let us know. At OW86, at OW Techtic. And our main show account at Online Warriors 1. Mads comes out October 18th on Shudder. So if you're interested in this, you don't have to wait very long, which is cool. And you need to be a Shudder user. But like I said, I kind of think that the people who are going to be most interested in this probably already have Shudder. So like the idea that it's going to drive people to the platform, I just don't know that that's actually what's going to happen. But hey, if you work for Shudder, hit me up. Let me know what your business plan is because I'd be curious to hear about that. Let's dig into Alarmo because I think this is going to be kind of the bigger of the two topics we have remaining. And I want to make sure we have adequate time blocked out to kind of walk through this. So for those that do not know, this was last week we got essentially Nintendo dropped this product that apparently it's releasing on October 9th, which as of this recording, it should already be out. But I think right now it's currently exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online users. That's kind of like the early access. Let's just cut to the chase. This is an alarm clock that Nintendo is making. They're selling it on their website for $100. And the entire premise essentially is that you hook it up to your Wi-Fi, you point it at your bed in a very specific way because it uses motion sensors to note when and how you are waking up. And it allows you to be woken up by certain scenes from Nintendo properties. I think there's 5 currently. There's Splatoon, there's Super Mario Odyssey, there's The Legend of Zelda, there is Pikmin, and I don't remember what the last one is. I'm sure someone is getting on Twitter right now to complain that I don't know what the last one is. But anyways, the premise here is that the motion set, first of all, I should state the obvious and get this out of the way because I'm sure people are just waiting for me to complain that Metroid is not in here. I feel like there are plenty of sound effects and a lot of music that I would like to be woken up to. So let's back up a little bit, because let me start by saying I am not the target audience for this product, because oftentimes I wake up before my alarm even goes off. I have used the same alarm song for the last probably 15 years, and I really don't have any intention of changing it. I'm going to get into why I think this product is actually a very good idea, but Techtic, I want your take as well. I want to know what your alarm habits are.
So I can see people their immediate reaction is, oh, I would never use this. I use my phone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I think that's a poor take because there is a huge Nintendo fan base that does not yet have cell phones, first and foremost. So I think this is a good idea for that market alone. Secondly, the market that has the cell phone. This is kind of a fun concept, but I wish their commercial was more stressful. And what I mean by that is I know for certain in The Legend of Zelda that there is certain chimes that make you sweat bullets because you think an enemy is nearby and you're about to get your shit rocked. And that's what I want to wake up to. Right. When we're waking up on our alarm, there's not like a couple tussles, a couple stretches, a couple yawns. No, it's like, holy sugar honey iced tea. We got to slap that alarm off because it's about to go down. That's the commercial I wanted to see. And that's what I want. That's what I would use this for. That's how I would get me up, because I am not a gentle waker upper.
What is your current alarm? I assume you use your phone. What is your current alarm on your phone? Like, what is the sound? You don't have to play it, but just describe it to me.
I don't know. Standard Samsung chime. Could not.
Okay, so it's
tell you.
It's some bleep bloops. My alarm song for the last, again, probably 15 years. I don't know whenever the movie came out, probably, is a song from the Inception soundtrack called "Dream Is Collapsing," which is the song that plays when he has to come out of a dream. I was really cheeky and cute when I chose that song, but it is very effective because it kind of kicks right in with kind of some blaring sounds. Like I said, I don't use it super often, but it's effective. I agree with a couple of the points that you have made. One, a huge potential user base for this does not have cell phones yet. Two, the people in this video that need to wake up clearly don't need to wake up all that badly. Like, there's these very like idyllic scenes in which these people are being woken up, which is very
it's like
funny
the music's playing, like the bird chirping. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I would think, yeah. And they didn't get into the specifics. Like, I'm sure they said that each game has a range of scenes that you can select from, and I'm sure that some of them are more intense. And
we saw
for
Bowser,
those that have not watched the video,
the Bowser boss fight scene, then that we know is intense. But like, there's certain chimes that are more unsettling in the Legend of Zelda that I really want to hear.
Well, how it's described on the website is that they'll start playing some music. If you're not moving or waking up, they will send someone to wake you up. The idea being, like, in Mario, for example, they'll send Peach to say, like, hey, get up. If that doesn't work, then they'll escalate threats. So they'll send Bowser and be like, dude, you got to get up. Like, I don't know what exactly they do or say, but that's the gist of it. We need to get into kind of the specifically cool aspect of this to me, which is the sleep tracking and the idea that you're pointing this thing at your bed and it has motion sensors that basically can keep track of A, how you're sleeping, but B, whether or not you're actually waking up. This alarm clock, it sounds like, is designed to be touchless, so you're not pressing a button to turn it off. The alarm clock can tell when you have woken up. Now, a couple of things with that.
Significant others.
Well, yeah, so that's one thing. The website actually does, in the FAQ, say, doesn't guarantee effectiveness for multiple people or people with pets even. So that's something to bear in mind for sure. That's not where I was going, but that's something I wanted to note. Where I was going is that, like I said, I am a pretty good waker-upper, not to pat myself on the back, but I grew up with two brothers, both of whom would do anything to outfox an alarm. But like they will do anything to be like, oh, if I lay perfectly still, or if I wake up and act like I'm getting up, the alarm will turn off and then I can go back to sleep. Like, that seems like a generally dangerous concept for this clock to have. I'm not saying the clock itself won't work. I'm just saying that I can see people gaming that a little bit.
Also, sometimes, so like with my own alarm clock, I'll sit up and look at the time and then go, oh, okay, I want 5 more minutes. There has to be a way to like override that motion feature if you're like a frequent snoozer.
I think that this is a really good idea. I think that so like if you remember back in, again, throwing out years here, I don't know if this is actually the right time frame, but probably 2014, 2015 period, you had Amazon coming in with like the Echo Show. And the Echo Show, the idea of it was basically, hey, this is an alarm clock that can also do a bunch of other stuff. Like it's something that's going to sit on your nightstand. It's going to have the basic functionality of an alarm clock. And it can also do these things like make it a little bit lighter in the room if you have smart lights. And it can like play certain sounds and do certain things and keep track of your sleep, like all that stuff. But it did so very generically, I guess I'll say. And I think as a result, it hasn't really picked up steam as being used. Like I have an Echo Show on my nightstand. I never even think about using it as an alarm clock. Like that's just never something that even crosses my mind. I think that this is a clever idea to kind of make the whole concept of it more fun, more personalizable, and like you can make an alarm sound unique to you. You can see what works best, and you can kind of relish in your fandom, which like if there's one thing I know about people who are fans, yeah, like Nintendo has already done this in various other ways. Like they've basically been like, here, do this thing, and it will allow you to, I don't want to say show or prove how big of a fan you are, but like just enjoy your fandom.
Well, that's why the amiibos are so successful. An example of that. I mean, yes, there's benefits to having them in game, but a lot of the people just use them as like neat collectibles because they are neat, especially if you're a fan of a specific franchise.
Exactly. Now, this, like I said, there's currently 5 games. They already are saying like they're going to roll out updates to add other games. I would certainly think Metroid. Like, I know I'm like a Metroid fanboy, but like,
is that they rolled this out with only 5 games, like that.
Yeah, and the choices themselves, I think, are interesting too. Like Mario and Zelda were always going to be in there. Not having Pokemon in there is kind of crazy.
Pokemon was crazy, and like Splatoon, like I get it's got a big fan base, but like Pokemon feels like way more. And I wonder if there was like licensing issues. Who knows between them and Gamefreak? I don't know. But there's so many other franchises. I'm so glad that we're talking about this. That like it's a weird first 5 crack. If this is your first crack at it, you want to slam it out of the park.
The 5th game, by the way, that I didn't remember is maybe the most baffling one, which is Ring Fit Adventure.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy to me that's one of the 5 games that's being rolled out for this thing. Now it does say immediately, it says Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing New Horizons. It says link your Nintendo, I'm reading from the website now. Link your Nintendo account and use the built-in Wi-Fi to download additional titles like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing New Horizons in free updates as they become available. So like I said, there's going to be a lot more, but like I even think, and I would think that they will eventually do this, right? But like even like the older 8-bit games, like older Metroid or like older Super Mario, Legend of Zelda, like 8-bit music, I think would be very cool for this. Even 8-bit sound effects might be very cool for this. Like, I would hope they eventually get to that point. And like
even the screen, having a little 8-bit Metroid pan across, oh, that'd be so good.
Yes, because, and I haven't mentioned that bit, there is, it seems like always a character on the screen doing something, just kind of in idle video game state. There's also settings you can adjust on the clock to have it basically do certain things on the hours. And there's also sleepy sounds, which I want to talk about this too. And we're going to get into, I want to get your take on which alarm you would pick of the 5 that are available. And if you had your druthers of any Nintendo property, which you would take. We'll get to that. But the sleepy sounds is another one that they explicitly shouted this out in the 5-minute kind of demo video as like, you can play sleepy sounds to get you to go to bed. They did not say that it was kind of sounded like generic sounds. They didn't explicitly say you can like play music from a game. And that is, again, I feel like a miss, because I would love to fall asleep listening to like the ambient Metroid Prime, like Torvus Bog from Metroid Prime 2 has like a very kind of gentle, relaxing melody that can, and there's rain falling in the background. It can soothe you to sleep, right? I think there's a missed opportunity there potentially. I think it's a great feature, but there's little things like that scattered through this that I think this is going to be great. I think it's going to be a success. I think it's a good idea. I'm hoping that they can work out the kinks like that as they kind of go on with this.
I mean, the beauty about the Nintendo fandom is right, wrong, or different, they will give their feedback. And so what's nice about this piece of hardware is that it's kind of adaptable with software.
Yeah, well, and you know, I think too, you were talking about the fans, but like speaking about Nintendo as a company, like, and with respect to like the retro 8-bit stuff that I was talking about before, like, if there's one thing I feel like they have proven with their recent moves, it's that they have plenty of respect for that sort of thing. Like Nintendo Switch Online has like a whole library of games like that. Of like, hey, remember in the 80s? And like, I personally don't because I wasn't alive. But like, I think you're going to see a lot of that rolled out. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff in Nintendo Directs about this that may or may not make me wish I had the clock. I'm not saying I'm going to go out and buy one right now. You know, I do share a bed with my wife. So like, I don't think that the motion sensing stuff would necessarily work for me. And I think that's one of the main draws to having it. But I can really, really appreciate the idea and the concept here. So
now that you mention it, I can literally hear at the end, in the middle of every single Nintendo Direct from here until the day I die, and expect this DLC for the Alarmo. And it does that
100%. I also want to know if you can mix and match the fonts and the characters in the set. Because like looking at the clock, like I like the font I like the most is probably the Legend of Zelda font. I think that's the coolest font. But I don't know. I would probably, and again, I want to get into the specific wake up stuff. I would probably pick Pikmin for my wake up sounds. Just having heard them in the video, I thought they sounded the most wakey uppy and fun. I wonder if you can mix and match stuff like that. But of the 5 for you, which would you be picking as your alarm?
Legend of Zelda. Easy.
That's what I was figuring you were going to say. So now that we got that out of the way, let's assume that every Nintendo property possible is on this clock. Talk to me. Is it still Legend of Zelda? Is it Pokemon? Is it something else that I'm not thinking of? What do you got?
It's 8-bit Legend
What's the most
Zelda.
wakey uppy thing?
Because if I wake up to I'm ready to save Hyrule. 100%. I just
right.
I think you're wrong on the Metroid soundtrack. Castlevania might be cool, but not Metroid. But the Zelda,
Metroid is better for sleepy. Metroid's better sleepy music, I think.
The Zelda
I would want to go to sleep with
soundtrack is like my childhood. I love just playing that main like, and it really comes not so much the 8-bit, but really Super Smash Brothers on the GameCube. When you're at Hyrule Castle, that song, it's I'm stuck on that franchise, which is like funny because I'm complaining about them not having other ones, but still. I also think it's a miss that they didn't have other color Alarmos too, that it's all just red.
Red's kind of their color though, right? Have they established that red is their color? I mean, if you go on the Nintendo Switch eShop, it's red everything.
Yeah, but like,
I don't disagree.
There you can already tell that there's going to be like, I don't want to say condoms, but like silicone covers that go around it that are various colors so that people can personalize them. That's going to you can already tell that that's going to hit the market.
But that's true of any technology. Essentially at this point, right? I mean, I think you're right, but I think they could have at least done like the primary colors that are used in the Mario logo, right? Like just red, green, yellow, blue, that very bright color. I would probably, like I said, Metroid, it's tough. I would need to think more about like specific Metroid Prime songs that would be good as alarm wake ups, but like I think I probably have a better shot at finding a really good one with like Super Mario 64. Just like these games all have such good music, and you guys, people listening know at this point that I'm a score head, so like I know a lot of these, and the sound effects I would need to think more about. But like, yeah, Super Mario 64, Metroid Prime would be good, and past that, I would need to think about it a little bit more. But I think depending on the cadence of these free updates where they're going to be rolling out, new games, it could just turn into like the coolest thing.
Do you think it's going to eventually turn into non-free updates or pay DLC type stuff?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the more likely thing is that they're going to keep rolling these updates out for free, but the price of the clock itself is never going to change. I think that is the very Nintendo way to be. Is the clock itself will always be $100, and their plan, which I think is probably a pretty good one, is to just get people buying the clock over time by being like, oh, we released the Metroid Prime, clock update, so now Illeagle is going to buy his. And then, I think it's going to be a slow burn like that.
And then eventually they'll go, guess what? Alarmo 2.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, that's just kind of the state of technology. I do like, I'm imagining a world of possibility for this because like even right now, like October, it's like, oh, well, I had the Super Mario thing on my Alarmo, but for spooky season, I'm going to change it to Luigi's Mansion. Like, I think there's so much you can do in that space. And like, I'm thinking about Banjo-Kazooie. Man, there's just so much you could do. So I'll be curious to see how this product evolves and what, like you said, like we both said, you're going to see about 1 million of these things on Nintendo Directs. So get used to that. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think they did, like, that's again kind of what Nintendo's model is, right? It's basically they're like, hey, if we show off enough like booster packs for the courses for Mario Kart 8, people are going to buy it, even though it's always $60. It's the same concept here. I really do think that's what their plan is, and I think it's pretty good. So again, this is already out if you're a Nintendo Switch Online user. I don't know that we have, I guess, a time frame for when people who don't have that subscription can get it. Also, even for the Nintendo Switch Online people, it says it ships by early November. So you can order it now, but you're not going to get it for a bit. So yeah, there's probably a lot more we could talk about with that. In particular, the idea that the clock is watching you at all times, motion sensor wise. But for the moment, we're gonna table that, and we're gonna move into our break before coming back to talk about more Nintendo, and particularly Pokemon. Sorry. Before we do that, though, before we go to the break, I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen is a knight at our square table. I don't know when we decided to make the table square. That was probably something that I decided to do kind of unilaterally, but I'm sticking by it. He is a knight at our square table. He is a Patreon producer on this show. He supports us at the highest of our 3 levels of support on Patreon. As a result, he gets this weekly shout out. He, of course, gets access to the monthly secret segment and the monthly vlog. Gets input into the weekly game segment, which this week we will again be skipping because there's only 2 of us. And, you know, as much as we all want to see Techtic play a game against himself, I don't know how entertaining that would actually wind up being. So Steven gets all of those benefits as the highest of our 3 levels of Patreon support. He's a subscriber there. You can also get access to the monthly secret segment and the monthly vlog by subscribing to the Squire level of support, which is the second highest level. There's also a page which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So you can head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast to grab the details on any and all of those levels of support. Thanks again to Steven. We will be right back to talk about the Gamefreak hack.
I'm Ryan Fonzie.
This is Cameron Hagee.
My name is Tony Giggles.
And we're 3 dudes who love The Legend of Zelda and love talking about The Legend of Zelda.
And if you are a Zelda fan as much as we are, then come on down and listen to your heart's content.
We have a podcast that we'd like to share with you. It's called A for No, B for Yes. We cover the Legend of Zelda series, different games chapter by chapter, and we have all kinds of theories about what we see and what we've experienced in the game.
Do you go through Wikipedia and look up stuff based on the things you see in the game to create theories to how it could link to other things in the world that we actually live in, and not the Zelda one that was the one that was created by the people that are in the world that we actually live in right now? Because if you don't, then you should watch this, because we do.
Did you guys get all that? If not, oh, you didn't. Okay. So we are A for No, B for... All right, I'll stop.
All right, we are back to talk about Gamefreak. For those that do not know, Gamefreak is the main developer, or maybe the only developer of the Pokemon games, which obviously is a pretty big deal. They released a statement last Thursday in Japanese, but it's been translated. Company basically claimed that they discovered that its servers were hacked in August and that sensitive employee information had been leaked, What's being described as a treasure trove of materials related to the franchise. We're talking source codes from games, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, code names for the Switch 2 and upcoming Gen 10 Pokemon games, Ounce and Gaia, respectively. Just some internal discussion of the upcoming in-development Pokemon MMO, internal discussions for design meetings, talk about an unreleased Detective Pikachu sequel, Pokemon movies, anime series. I mean, it really a treasure trove of stuff. I think in situations like this, I always just kind of want to think about what the hackers' goals were. I mean, another recent example that was brought to my attention by my wife, and this is a bit of a digression, but I did not know this. I guess somewhat recently, a bunch of hackers hacked the Wayback Machine. Do you know what the Wayback Machine is?
No.
It's like, I guess it's the idea that like it kind of would like archive the internet. So like certain web pages that are no longer around now would still be around if you could use the Wayback Machine. And people did to access things that were gone, but then hackers came along and basically said, hey, what if the Wayback Machine was a potato because we're going to hack it? And they did that. And like, I guess my point is that like, I think there's a wide range of hacking that is happening in today's world. I think there are hackers that often have, misguided as they may be, altruistic intentions, things that they think would be good for society if they hacked this thing and got this information out. And then there are other hackers who just kind of want to sow chaos and just be bad people. And I'm not saying I even necessarily know where this one falls in particular, but like, I just kind of wonder aloud what the goal was. What does releasing this information on Reddit and X?
It gets people hyped. Like if you're a fan of Pokemon and you get this leak, it's juicy. It's fun. It's like now it revitalized the like speculation and like lets you explore of the world of what could be with some actual basis around it.
See, that's tricky though, because I think there's some truth to that, but like this isn't that recent. This was like probably 10 years ago at this point. But do you remember 8 to 10 years ago when Sony got hacked and a bunch of stuff leaked? And one of the things that leaked was there was talk of doing a Men in Black 21 Jump Street crossover movie. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like a big thing when it happened. There was leaks for a bunch of other movies, franchises too, but like that got leaked and people were like, wow, that would be amazing, essentially. That was the broad consensus, was that would be so cool. And like you said, it was kind of like, oh, this is building hype for that. And then Sony was like, actually, it's canceled. So like, it's kind of a double-edged sword is my point. Like,
oh, you get hype for
I
things
guess
you
it
didn't
builds
expect.
hype. Well, you get hype for things and then Game Freak takes them off the table. Like, what if people are getting hype for this Pokemon MMO because they're hearing references to it being in development, and then 2 years on the road, Game Freak pulls the plug on it? Then it's hard that way.
So there's a couple. So Game Freak has been saying like, oh, we're done doing Mega Evolutions, and Mega Evolutions were introduced in Pokemon Y and Pokemon X, but this new one, this Pokemon Z, we're done with Mega Evolutions. We're never bringing those back. And everyone's like, what the fuck? What do you mean? And this leak makes you actually like maybe pull the curtain back and be like, okay, we might have some possible megas. Like this leak showed a possible Mega Licking Tongue and a Mega Hydrangea. Like, I want that. Give me that, and just stop trying to keep everything close to vest. Tell us that there's going to be megas. Don't be like, nope. It's annoying. Don't do that.
So putting yourself in the minds of the hackers, you think the hackers hacked this, found this information, and thought, this is exciting that people should know.
Yeah.
Like I could certainly believe that. I guess I don't know for sure that that's what it actually is, but like. It is just interesting to think
they keep it all so close to the vest, and I think it would be a way better thing for them to just intentionally give us leaks. Get another thing that I saw in there was it looked like a variant to the Timberline, just a regional form, which again, that's awesome. Like be like, hey, this you can expect to see this, and like with the past installments, all we saw was like the starters, and it was like a month before it dropped, so it really didn't like give us anything until like it was already being released. I'm all for hype. Like why keep it so close?
Yeah, it begs the question. We don't know for sure what the motivations of these hackers was, but like it does beg the question of like, if companies like Game Freak were a little bit less, like you said, stingy with their information, would it deter hackers from being like, I'm going to hack Game Freak servers just so I can find out what the heck is going on with Pokemon? Like, I would like to think that wasn't the reason that they were hacked, but like, it's certainly possible, right? So what you're basically saying is, hey, if you just told us this stuff, no one would hack you, and the negative effects of it you wouldn't feel, because everyone would be happy and excited for a game coming out, and you wouldn't have to deal with this fallout and release these statements and
Game
things.
Freak does this weird thing where they don't show you any gameplay or anything, and they just give you these tiny little teases up until like the last possible minute, because they think, well, they're going to buy it no matter what mechanics we put in the game, because they're true fans, which is like, yeah, but like, I don't like that.
The thing is, I mean, some of that stuff, I'm sure you're right that like it's released and it builds hype, but then there's other things like source code for Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Like that's like probably really damaging like company IP just being released on Reddit now, of like people can see how the game's inner mechanics work, and like I'm not experienced enough with Pokemon to know exactly how damaging it would potentially be to see how the sausage gets made, but like I would imagine that's on balance a negative thing. So like I don't know.
I'm
I don't
honestly
know how you...
surprised that like that part of it is news now, because so Heart Gold and Soul Silver, like those have kind of been floating around the internet for a while. I'm just saying.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. So it has it so like just full copies of the code, you mean?
Well, people have made them into ROMs already.
Well, a ROM is one thing, but I don't know that a ROM actually allows you to see source code for the game. Like I could be wrong, but I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think all that IP would just be floating around in the form of ROMs. Maybe it is.
I don't know how ROMs are created. To be completely honest with you, I always thought they had to like reverse engineer it somehow, but I could be wrong.
No, I have to imagine. I can't imagine it involves you looking at the raw code for the game.
Some kind of a copy cart or something like that.
Something. It's just that would be an IP nightmare of like, oh, everyone knows the secret to like how this game works. Like I just don't think.
But also like Heart Gold and Soul Silver weren't like those are the. I believe those came out on the 3DS. Those weren't like revolutionary game mechanics.
Well, I think you could probably argue that none of them are. But like Pokemon in and of itself is a fairly fixed experience. Like graphics are updated and new Pokemon are added, but the core experience has not changed in literal decades. So you can make that argument of like, well, how important is it really to see at this point? Because we kind of know what we're going to get over and over again. I don't, again, as a kind of an outsider as far as Pokemon is concerned, I don't really know the answer to that, but I can't imagine Gamefreak is super happy about it. I don't know why they even know about Pokemon movies and anime series. I guess they kind of need to know about those things. They need to have a lot of runway, knowing that they're coming to develop games that tie into them. But I also can't imagine they have a whole lot of breadth of detail on them, at least relative to like the studios that are making the movies and the anime series. But again, I could be wrong about that. It's just a massive amount of information that's now pouring out onto the internet. And like I said, you kind of have to just ask yourself why. Like, why is why are hackers doing this exactly? Why do hackers do anything is a very interesting question that we probably don't have enough airtime on here to get into, nor enough expertise. But anyways, if you see this sort of information, I don't know, maybe it'll rustle your jimmies to look at it. It really won't for me, but apparently it's hitting Reddit. So be on the lookout for that if it's the sort of thing you're into. That brings us to What Are You Up To Wednesday. This is the part of the show where we find out what we've all been up to, or where the listeners find out, rather, what we've all been up to. So I think I went first last week because I wanted to really gush hard about Balatro, which I'm still very deep into. But before I give my update, I want to defer to you, Techtic, to take us through what your week's been like.
So I only really want to talk about one thing, and it is that Nerdbomber and I watched the movie Thelma. It is about a old grandmother who gets a phone call from what she thought was her grandson and is asked to transfer $10,000 to get him out of jail. And she falls for it, and she kind of feels helpless in her old age and says, you know what? I'm going to find these mother fluffers and get my money back. So it's a story of her on her adventure, and it is incredibly hilarious while also being heartwarming and kind of sad. I think this movie is done really, really well, and I would give it like a solid 8 out of 10. It was way better than expected, and it hit me in all different places. Then I thought it was just going to be kind of like a dumb comedy, and it had just this profound message, and I think everyone should check it out.
I remember talking about this movie when the trailer first came out on the show. It would have had to have been a year ago at this point. I don't remember exactly when, but I guess, yeah, I guess I would have thought the premise itself sounds sad, right? If only because it's so real. Like these things are happening all the time now.
Well, you get from the trailer, you get the vibe.
There was some comedy in it.
From the trailer, you get the vibe that it's like this old people trying to be Mission Impossible comedy. Like you do not get sad from the trailer at all, and it took us by surprise, and it was good.
It took you by surprise in the sense of the depth of emotional content.
Yeah, like it.
I can appreciate that.
The message is basically, coming to terms that as you're older, you need help, and to not turn it down, and to to just accept it. And it's like it's just really profound but also kind of sad because it makes you aware of your own mortality.
Well, the good news for us is that we will never get old. So not really a concern for us, but sounds like a good movie.
Because vampires.
Well, what I did there was I was making a joke, not necessarily about vampires, but guys, we are going to get old. In fact, it's already happening. Like, I'm hurting myself doing basic things now. That's a big part of getting old. It's not going to stop. Techtic, you may or may not be a vampire. I don't want to air your dirty laundry on the air. But I haven't gone full vampire quite yet. Very cool. Anything else, or just, taking care of a dog issue?
No, that's it.
Well, like I said before, all the best to your fluffy boy. As for myself, I will also probably keep it quite brief, but I did play a game, so this is going to be me trying to engage with the youth, so get ready. My wife, who is more in touch with the youth culture than I am, I think, introduced me to this game. Let me just cut to the chase. I had to download Roblox on my computer to play the game that she wanted me to try. It's a game called Dress to Impress. First of all, have you heard of this game at all?
No.
I'd be surprised if you had. This is a game where you basically go into this, like, I don't know what it is. It's almost like a store. You're in a store and you're there with like 9 other people. So it's you versus 9 other people, 10 players. And they will give you a theme, and the theme might be like pink or wintertime or amusement park. And you have some very random amount of time, like 5 minutes and 30 seconds or something. I don't remember what it is, to walk around the store and dress your person, either a man or a woman, in finery and clothing and items that you think best suits the theme. And you choose their hair, their skin color, their makeup, like you do their nails, all this stuff. And after that 5.5 minutes, you have a fashion show where everyone gets to show off their person that they've created.
How can their
and then
skin
everyone
color
votes on
affect
who
the theme? That feels problematic.
It's not necessarily affecting the theme. It's just like, for example, if the theme is pink, you can make your person have pink skin.
Oh, okay.
But then the idea is you trot out your person with your outfit that you've created, and everyone votes on who has the best one. And it's just like this dumb little game that takes like 6 minutes. But I thought you might have heard about it because I think it's very big on like YouTube and TikTok right now. Like it's just blowing up as people are doing it. And it was kind of fascinating. Played that for a little bit, so I wanted to throw that out there to again engage with the youth culture. And otherwise, like I said, I'm still playing Balatro quite a bit. And we also just recently got a copy of Mario Party. And let me tell you, man, Mario Party holds. And by the way, I did not get the new one.
I was just gonna say, that's about to drop, right?
I got the old one because the old one. We talked earlier about Nintendo and how they rarely give discounts on their first party products. I got the old Mario Party, Super Mario Party, for $40. So shout out to me ? But like, again, that's one of those things where the core experience is kind of the same across the board, right? So but we've been playing a lot of the mini games. My experience with Mario Party has always been such that like I care very deeply about doing well in the mini games, and I tend to do well in the mini games, and not winning the actual game as a result of that is always infuriating to me, because there is a massive element when you're playing the actual game, which is basically just this turn-based thing where you go around a board looking for stars. There's so much randomness to it that even if you win like every mini game, there's no guarantee that you will win the actual game. And in fact, most of the time I feel like you don't. So that's very frustrating for me. But I love the mini games so much. They hold up. They're really great. They're just fun little quick experiences. You can also you can play the mini games on their own. You don't have to play a full turn-based game to play them. So yeah, big fan of the product and the experience. I wish there were certain things that were different about the turn-based element and like the randomness of where stars go and stuff like that. But that's just me complaining because I'm a competitor. So that brings us, I guess, to the end of the episode here. I mean, we like I said, we are going to forego the quiz next week, hoping to get back on our quiz grind next week. But in the meantime, we hope you all had a great time stopping by, chatting with us, hearing from us. This one was for the boys.
For the boys.
Like that, if you're listening to this and you're a woman, hopefully you also had a good time. Twitter handles were mentioned earlier in the episode. You can go hit us up there. We'd love to have a conversation with you about anything we talked about on the show or anything in general. So hit us up there. And otherwise, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, head over there, leave us a review if you're so inclined. Tell your friends, tell your wife, tell your dog. tell your folks. And in the meantime, we'll see you next week, but stay safe and keep on podcasting.